Crypto's going down, the stock market's going down. There's no hope whatsoever. The top is in, and that's all over for everything. That's what we're basically being told. Let's go over it to see if there's any validity, because I don't think there is validity. I think we're going to be okay, but it might just be a little bit of a difficult month. Extreme fear is at 19. This is with the traditional markets. So the traditional markets are feeling it, while in crypto, we're at 20. And we're low, we're at 10. And now we're up to 20. Still very, very fearful. Now, this is one thing that's really important to keep in mind. And this is something that I had a little bit of this information before, but not as much as I do now, or as many of us will have now. And that is the S&P 500 post-election year seasonal pattern. This is taking like 75, 76 years of data, right? And it's comparing it to 2025. This is 2025. This is when the existing party loses, so Democrats lost and the Republicans took over. And this is what typically happens with the S&P 500. It comes up and then it tanks. On this occasion, maybe because it wasn't really being run terribly well previously. I'm not saying it's been run really, really well now, but the economy wasn't really, really looked after. There's wars and whatnot. But for whatever reason, this is what happened with Trump. And then another peak, and then down we go. So we're actually basically following the same thing, to be perfectly honest. And this didn't play out exactly with Sol or whatnot, because we had our peak in end of Jan. But typically, second week of March lows are common the past 2 decades, and the average year for the S&P 500 the past 20 years. And they have the peak here in mid-February. Now, if we actually have a look at the charts, we can see that if we come back to when Trump was, when the elections happened, there was all this, uncertainty in the market. Trump was elected and price pumped, and then pumped, and it came down, and then pumped up again. And now we've just come down. We've now broken, well, we haven't, we've reclaimed it, but we're back to the November election time. We actually haven't lost that much in terms of the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. It's the same deal. We kind of came on down, we came up, and we've come on down. So it's not good to see, but we're actually doing okay. And Bitcoin's actually doing much better. So here's a couple of different scenarios here. Ben Cohen, that does a lot of TA, he went through some of these. He had quite a bit to share. But we'll have a look here. So November, around this time. This was the election time. This is like 67K. We came up, and then we're still miles above where we were back then. So we could come on down here and we'd still be in line with the S&P 500. We can also see that this, if we zoom out, this is kind of our support. So we could dip down to 73. And Ben Cohen thinks if we break this and start to break, then we start to break down. And I think we're going to have some relief here, but only time will tell. This is not the time to play with leverage. Now, Bluntz calls the Solana top like every 2 weeks or something. Maybe not that quite often, maybe not that often, but like he's called it a decent number of times. And so the issue with taking his data is, well, sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong, right? Like he's a better trader than I am, for sure. But he keeps on calling the top, and then it makes a new high, and then like what happened? Anyway, he has once again called the Sol's over. He did have some accuracy here when things were jumping up. He's like, this is Sol's kind of peaking for sure. And then he said, all right, down we move. And now Sol's down 57% from the highs. We shouldn't have even gone to 290. That was just euphoria, way too much euphoria. And now he's literally calling the rise, and the bull market lasted 762 days. The bear will likely last around 70%. Best case, it drags out to mid-2026, and worst case, end of 2026. So if you trust his analysis, which I do not, then you can hedge yourself here. You could put on a short position if you want to ride those down. I don't think it's going to be like that. Not with the data we have yet. It's just too early. But at the same time, it is a scary time in the market. Things could certainly go lower. Roll Poll put out this, just don't fuck this up. We're still in the early stage. You can watch it yourself. It's his video. It'll be linked below. His big thing is like, buy the dip, not financial advice, but he said buy the dip on Sol if you can afford to do so, and do not use leverage. Leverage, you'll get blown out. You'll long, it'll go up a little bit, you won't close, and then market makers will just destroy you. Just buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell. Hopefully you should be profitable. Now we have someone that longed $200 million worth of ETH and made a whole lot of money on Hyperliquid. They deposited some USDC into a new account, started longing millions of ETH. Unfortunately, this has now closed. They've moved it somewhere else, but they did have a perp open just before. They had a long arm and they were in profit, but we'll keep an eye on this address and we'll keep an eye on these sort of things. Maybe there is some inside information coming out. We'll have to wait and see. Now, this is just a snippet, and these snippets don't give a full amount of context, but we want to relay what has been said. Trump says the US will make hundreds of billions of dollars from tariffs and become so rich you won't know where to spend all that money. Well, that's certainly not going to be the case because there's trillions of dollars worth of debt. But what my main point is, it doesn't matter if it's left or right. I don't think someone wants to take on an economy and in the first year just have everything just nosedive. That's the word I'm looking for. At the same time, Canadian Prime Minister, there's a new one, Mark Carney, says, my government will keep tariffs on until the Americans show us some respect. We'll have to see how it goes. Canada needs US. I don't think the US needs Canada. Now, remember, even Trump's backed World Liberty Financials, which is probably being looked after by Eric Trump. This is down 110 million for its investments. You do have to zoom out. Like, that's one clear thing. And at the same time, people are buying. It's just a transfer from retail into the whales with long-term vision. Spain's second largest bank gets regulatory approval to offer Bitcoin and ETH trading. This is kind of crazy. We didn't have any of this previously. And the markets are certainly not pricing that in my opinion. But we do need S&P 500 to start to look a little bit more nicer before we continue. Having a quick look at the calendar. There's an Elixir airdrop checker. I'm not sure what that is. Moonwalk, keep that up. And remember, just Jupiter vote, get amongst that. And SIMD 0228 is almost here. A little bit more participation, and then it's done. Majority of people are voting for yes. And this is more just the big validators that are pushing this. This is not something that I think has been worked out properly. And yeah, I mean, the thing is, something else could be proposed in the future that maybe counters this. We'll have to wait and see. At present, I really feel this is a not well thought out proposal, but then no one else was putting up proposals. So this is just a state of, the decentralization nature of a blockchain and project. They're not really there yet. Exactly how it all kind of comes to pass is a little bit hard. Jupe calendar, this will be, of course, subject to change because I think the team needs to get on, do some live streams, to be perfectly honest. There's a whole lot of FUD, which you can look into yourself. You got Jupe and Jude podcast tonight, 11 maybe, and a few other things. One thing to just remind you of, go and vote. You can go and vote yes, you can go and vote no, you can go and vote abstain. The TLDR with the unhappiness, the FUD on the community is not necessarily Meow's ask, which is vetoable. It's more how much they're paying the team that are taking over. And I think the mistake there is you shouldn't actually be sharing that kind of information with a DAO. People don't know about this sort of stuff. I don't know about this stuff. We don't have a comparison because there's such a lack of transparency in the crypto space. No one knows what the salary they're getting, and this is, I think, the biggest mistake. You can't be overly transparent. Plus, I'm very bullish on Jupe, very bullish on Jupiter. It does mean I am allowed my criticisms. I am allowed to be bullish and say this should be improved, this should be improved. I know it takes time. The other FUD point is the fact that Jupiter is not decentralized. You can't go and just put out a vote. You can't put a proposal, it gets reaches quorum, and then it goes for a proposal. You can't go to Jupe Research and say, I would like this to happen.